Legend of Zelda series is known for having a lot of great bosses. Sadly, we were not that impressed with all the bosses in Wind Waker. Many of you might disagree to many of our choices, but we just have to rank them where we feel they belong. And just like we have done before, we will split the final boss into 4 entries on this list, after the different forms Ganondorf takes. If we put the whole final battle into one entry, there's a big chance the final bosses would dominate every list. Now that that's out of the way, we're TheOwnersOfTriforce, I'm Owner1, and this is our Wind Waker boss ranking. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Our number 10 is Puppet and Spider Ganon. We found these two to be very disappointing. Generally speaking, we have nothing against them being puppets and such. It's a creative idea, and we thought that it was interesting. However, the thing with the first form is that we didn't feel threatened by it at all. The whole battle was just incredibly boring, where you have to cut the strings with a boomerang before you shoot the orb on its tail with light arrows. When we fight Ganon, we really want him to be intimidating and to be a real threat. But look at this. All he does is spin around before he throws a punch with both arms every now and then. And if that bothers you while you try to shoot the orb, you can just cut the strings that are attached to his arms, and he won't do anything to you. Oh, and he will send kisses at you, but that doesn't really help. This Ganon, compared to many other Ganons in the series, is a huge disappointment, and we did expect something more after playing up to this part. And then there's Spider Ganon, the form you take on after Puppet Ganon. The spider form isn't really something we're complaining about, and the way you use the water reflections to see how it lands is really creative. But the fight with it is really easy. The spider will go up into the air, and the camera will start looking down on you. The orb is still at the rear end of the monster, and you have to position yourself to where it is when the spider starts falling down so that you can shoot it. He spends a lot of time up in the air before it descends, and he'll send more kisses at you while he's up. But you have the time to kill them, and even collect some of the items that drop before you have a second or two to position yourself again. It's just a really slow fight, but at the same time, it's over really fast. It's another disappointing form, and we think it's the worst fight in this game, along with Puppet Ganon. I won't even try to say this boss's name because I have no idea how to pronounce it. But it's the boss from the Forbidden Woods. This is a huge plant, and you have to save Makar from it. This battle is a bit intense with all the vines it's got. The whole plant holds itself to the ceiling with vines that you have to cut with your boomerang. Very similar to Baronade from Ocarina of Time. When you cut all of them, the plant will fall down and open itself, and you can attack the little head thingy, which is the weak point. But you have to be really quick and get out, before it packs itself together and spits you out. Because this is the most damage it can deal out at a time. While they try to cut these vines, it uses even thicker vines that are attached to the bottom of the plant to inflict damage. They can either whip you if you stand below one of them, or they will all dig themselves underground and get up to whip you wherever you stand. It gets intense because they move really fast and make many loud noises. However, they aren't really that threatening. I can stand still without getting hit sometimes, even if they appeared right before me. Once you get away from the vines, it's all open for you to cut the vines that are attached to the ceiling, and attack the head thing again. It's actually a very easy boss. We can understand if some people like it, but this ends up being our number 9. So you go through Dragon Root's cavern. You're inside and just wonder what's bothering Valoo so much. And then this appears in front of you. Holy shit! This is probably the coolest, most awesome form Gohma has ever taken in the series. But no matter how much we praise how Gohma looks, this whole fight is pretty boring. It consists of 2 phases. In the first, you have to use the grappling hook on Valoo's tail, jump over Gohma to make the platform he's sitting on to fall down onto her. And then you have to watch the cutscene, where her shell starts cracking, before she pushes the platform back to its place again. This is actually a pretty long battle, but not because there's a lot you have to do to beat her. It's more because of how you have to watch that cutscene 3 times, which makes it really boring. Even though you can just use the grappling hook right after the platform is placed up there again, you still have to wait and watch the shell crack. And if you land on the platforms that are placed high around the room, you've pretty much avoided all sorts of attacks already, so it can be done very easily. She will try to spit fire or hit you with her claws, but they're very easy to avoid. In the second phase, she's without her shell, and you can now use a grappling hook on her eye to get her over to you, so that you can attack it. This is a pretty cool part, as you can fight with her with the sword, but it's over really quickly. It's easier and pretty much more dull of a fight than our number 9, but it's a good version of Gohma at least. And we don't really have that high expectations to the first boss. Yeah, we know. Phantom Ganon is more of a mini-boss, but there weren't really any other mini-bosses in this game. You fought some mini-bosses inside the dungeons, but they were just regular enemies, either already or after the dungeons. Plus, Phantom Ganon has his own theme, so we just have to place him here. We can't have a mini-boss ranking with just one mini-boss, right? Anyway, you first encounter him when you visit the Forsaken Fortress for a second time, and he's got a very cool appearance. But the fight against him is the obligatory Dead Man's Volley. However, it's the second encounter that places him higher than Spider and Puppet Ganon, Gohma and, well, the plant. You see, you face him once more inside Ganon's tower, and it's quite the puzzle. Yes, it's still a Dead Man's Volley when it comes to the fight, but it creates clones of himself, and you can't leave the room until you kill the right one. And not only that, you can only progress if you go through the right door. To find the right one, you have to see where the handle of the sword points when it falls down after you kill them. This will happen through several rooms before you have one last battle against him. The lack of originality when it comes to the battle itself holds him back, but we appreciate the whole thing where you have to find the real one and the right way through the rooms. It makes him a believable phantom as he kept coming back to haunt us. The third puppet form is Moldorm Ganon, and this one is a lot more challenging than the two previous forms. It's still not the Ganon we wanted, and we don't really feel the threat that's about him wanting to kill us. It's really more like a Moldorm, because it just moves around without any sense of direction. But that's actually what makes the battle harder than the others, and that's why we appreciate it more. You still have to shoot the orb with light arrows, and it really becomes harder the more times you hit it, because it'll move faster and faster, and it gets more difficult to hit him. Instead of Keeses, Morths will show up throughout the fight, which is a bit of an odd choice too. It's not the Ganon form we're looking for, but at least it was the only form capable of leaving us dead, even though it never happened. Yes, this boss has been done before, and again, many times. But we haven't really been impressed with every boss on this list before this either, have we? It's pretty similar to Bongo Bongo. Shoot the eyeballs and hand palms with arrows, shoot his eyes, and bomb his mouth. What's kind of fun is that it sneezes out more arrows if you go empty. He's got some cool attacks with some sort of bombing from his mouth and such. The Tower of the Gods was meant to test the hero, and many think that making Link fight this boss was a stupid idea because it's easy. But this was meant as a sequel to Ocarina of Time, and maybe the creators of the game thought that Golden was a test to the player itself. If you had already played Ocarina of Time, you would have faced Bongo Bongo, and you would know what to do, and therefore be the right person. It's just a little thing I came to think of. If you haven't played Ocarina of Time, then you'll just learn something new. The Earth Temple was a pretty creepy and impressive dungeon. When you face both weird and scary enemies, you would maybe expect something scary as a boss. What you get is Jalhalla. He's supposed to be the ruler of Pose, which is cool, but his looks are disappointing. Still, the battle against him is pretty good. He's in a ghost form that makes him invincible. That's why there's always a stream of light somewhere in the room, coming down from the ceiling that you have to reflect towards Jalhalla with your mirror shield. When he's in a physical form, you can pick him up and throw him against the spiked pillars, which will make all the poles that gather in the beginning come out again. The number of poles is the number of lives he has, which means that when all poles are dead, he's defeated. This is something we like a bit. A great way to take this pose out is to use the hurricane spin. Brawlhalla's got some good attacks. He can blow air through his lantern to make the fire grow big and damage you. He can blow air to push you into the spikes. He can spread out fireballs to the floor. He can turn purple, drop himself onto you and make every movement more confusing to you. If you move your stick to the left, you might just end up going right instead, which is a cool thing. All in all, Brawlhalla was disappointing when it comes to his appearance, but the fight is a good one. Link's quest starts off with Tetra getting dropped onto his island. After he went up to see if she was alright, the same bird that dropped her off came back and kidnapped his sister. Link goes after her and ends up at the Forsaken Fortress. He uses stealth to find his way to the top of the tower, where his sister is held captive. But before he can do anything at all, the bird flies, grabs Link, and throws him away into the ocean. Then you go through 3 different dungeons, get the Master Sword, return to the Forsaken Fortress, and finally get your chance to beat the Helmrock King. This is the boss with the best backstory. This is a battle about revenge. And the battle is pretty good too. In the first phase, you face him inside the same room you got picked up in the last time you were there. The room starts filling up with water, and you have to run up to the top while the water level constantly rises. Enemies will approach you on your way, and the Helmrock King starts breaking the stairs and try to attack you. Some obstacles occur too on your way up, and you have to use your grappling hook. This is the most creative part of the fight, as the second phase is fought at the top. He will stand on his feet and try to peck you. When you avoid his attacks, smash his head with a skull hammer. You have to keep on doing this until his mask gets destroyed. Even if he does hit you, he will still get his beak stuck to the ground, and you might have enough time to crack his mask. When the mask is broken, he's vulnerable to your sword. He becomes more aggressive in this part, and will try to blow you into the spikes that surround the platform you're on. After a few hits, he's done. This fight is number 3 because of the story behind him, his appearance is great, the battle consists of about 3 phases, and they're all pretty good. Yup, Molgera is our second ranked boss in Wind Waker, but believe me when I say this, it has absolutely nothing to do with the song. The song during this fight has become very popular and is many people's favorite song in the series. While we can agree it's a good song, we think it's a very bad boss theme, at least for this boss. I mean, you're in this room filled with sand, and it gets filled with even more sand, and this huge sandworm monster flies up into the air, digs itself down, and you have an amazing battle with it. We feel that the song belongs in a whole other place than this great encounter. We think that it doesn't fit at all. Okay, enough with the song. The battle is, as I've already said, great. It doesn't have the story that the Helmrock King has, but we like this fight because of how many things you have to pay your attention to. While Molgera's mouth is open in the middle of the room, you have to use a hookshot on its tongue and attack it. But while doing this, you have to avoid getting sucked into its mouth by the quicksand, and either avoid or take care of the 3 mini Molgeras that appear. If you kill them, they will only respawn, which is a bit annoying. Molgera will also appear somewhere else than just the center of the room, so you have to watch out wherever you stand. Molgera will also go up into the air before trying to eat you, which really is an amazing sight. The way to defeat it doesn't really come with a lot of variety. Everything you have to do is to attack its tongue, but it's just how hectic this battle is that makes it so great. There's not really any second you should just stand and wait for something to happen, because something is always happening. That's why we love it so much. Though we find it a bit odd that this is the boss inside the Wind Temple. This game has a really great story. Ganondorf seeks out the Triforce, and he was the one who sent out the Helmrock King to find the holder of the Triforce of Wisdom, which turned out to be Tetra. He lost her on Outset Island, and ended up capturing Link's sister along with 2 other girls from Windfall Island. While Tetra is told that she is the holder of the Triforce of Wisdom, she stays down in Hyrule Castle while Link restores power to the Master Sword. When Link comes back to her, she disappears in front of him and is now in Ganondorf's hands. Link then goes into his lair, fights off all the bosses again, fights the three forms of puppet Ganons, and finally catches up with Ganondorf at the top of his tower. We witness a cutscene where Ganondorf actually throws some punches at Link, and he finally has the Triforce in front of him. But before he touches it, King Daphnis no Hands in Hyrule has already laid his hand on it, and gets his own wish granted. Ganondorf starts laughing, but decides to take out all of his rage on Link and the now called Zelda, since the wish was about these two and their future. While water is flooding this old and soon to be forgotten Hyrule, Link and Zelda team up together to fight this evil king. The fight had a good build up, but the fight itself isn't fantastic. Still, I'm not gonna be so negative about it. It is, after all, our number one boss from Wind Waker. What we find in this battle is something we really missed against the puppets, and that's the threat he can pose. Ganondorf is really aggressive and defensive at the same time. He blocks all their attacks and swings both of his swords very often. You will have to wait for Zelda to hit him with a light arrow before he can do anything, which makes you wait a lot, and just keep your shield up while you wait for the right opportunity. This makes the fight a bit boring, but after a while Ganondorf will turn against Zelda and literally slap her, making the battle to be between you and him for a short while. This is where you have to use the moves you've learned from Orca. Zelda then gets back to her feet, and she will try to hit him with her arrows again. But now that Ganondorf is all aware of her attacks, he will avoid them. That's why she tells him that she'll aim for your mirror shield to hit him like that instead. Once he's hit, you've got your opportunity to end it once and for all, and we get this awesome finish. While the fight itself is a bit boring, we like his aggression, the build up to the whole fight, the cutscenes around it, and how it's just a great conclusion to this great game. We've sailed all across the sea and beat all the bosses there are, and we finally flooded Ganondorf along with the rest of Hyrule. That should be a good enough reason for you to press that like button, right? If not, tell us why in the comments, along with something else you'd like to say. Please subscribe, because there are a lot of other bad guys we're gonna beat. Thanks for watching.